3 legions vanished without a trace, and Rome was never the same again. It was supposed to be routine, a peaceful march through a forested region of Germania. But what unfolded in that mist-drenched wilderness would become one of the Roman Empire's greatest tragedies. It wasn't just a military defeat. It was the moment Rome began to bleed, and the myth of its invincibility began to die. This is the story of the Teutoburg Forest ambush, where betrayal met arrogance, and ghosts were born in the fog. At the dawn of the 1st century AD, Rome was hungry. Its armies had pushed the frontiers to the edges of the known world. Gaul had fallen. Egypt had become a jewel in the imperial crown. Now all eyes turned to Germania, the wild land across the Rhine, uncivilized, untamed, and to Rome, unfinished. The man chosen to bring order to this frontier was Publius Quinctilius Varus, a seasoned politician with more confidence than caution. To him, Germania was just another region to pacify, tax, and tame. He marched in with 3 full legions, around 20,000 soldiers, and set about imposing Roman law. But Varus didn't know that the forest was watching. Among his trusted advisors was Arminius, a Roman-trained commander of Germanic birth. Arminius had served Rome faithfully, earning citizenship and command. But loyalty is a tricky thing when your homeland is under the heel of a foreign boot. Arminius knew how Rome thought. He knew how it fought, and he knew exactly how to destroy it. While Varus handed out legal decrees and planned cities, Arminius was forging secret alliances with Germanic tribes. He promised them revenge. He promised them freedom, and most of all, he promised them blood. In September of 9th AD, Arminius delivered false intelligence to Varus. A rebellion had broken out in a remote part of the province. The legions needed to respond quickly. Without suspecting a thing, Varus led his men into the forest. The Teutoburg Forest was no place for a Roman army. Dense, tangled, and muddy, it choked formations and devoured visibility. Rain poured, turning roads into rivers. The Roman columns stretched out for miles, a perfect target. Then Arminius disappeared, and the trees began to move. From the fog came the roar of war horns. Thousands of Germanic warriors burst from the shadows, wielding axes, spears, and fury. The Roman legions, strung out and disoriented, couldn't form their defensive formations. Cavalry was useless. Shields clashed against tree trunks instead of enemy lines. Chaos ruled. The ambush lasted for 3 days. Trapped in the wilderness with no shelter, no food, and no escape, the Romans were butchered. Some were cut down mid-march. Others were hunted as they fled. A few tried to make a stand, only to be surrounded and annihilated. When it was over, 3 entire legions were gone. 20,000 soldiers erased. Varus, disgraced and broken, fell on his own sword. Rome was shaken to its core. When Emperor Augustus received the news, he reportedly slammed his head against the walls of his palace, crying, "Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions." The psychological damage was immense. The Roman Empire had lost battles before, but never like this. Never so suddenly. Never so completely. It wasn't just a defeat. It was humiliation. The Germanic frontier, once viewed as the next great prize, became a cursed line in the dirt. Rome never seriously tried to conquer east of the Rhine again. The dream of a fully Romanized Germania died in that forest. But Rome wasn't just haunted by the defeat, it was haunted by what it left behind. Years passed before Roman forces dared return to the site. When they did, led by Germanicus, nephew of the emperor, they found horror. Skulls nailed to trees, skeletons left to rot where they fell, rusting armor and shattered shields, half swallowed by moss and mud. They performed burial rites for the dead, But the land refused to forget. It had become a graveyard without a name, a forest of ghosts. And still, the legion's eagle standards, symbols of Roman pride, were missing. For Rome, that was unforgivable. Emperor Tiberius launched missions just to recover the lost eagles. It became an obsession, a symbol of pride and vengeance. One was recovered years later, another even later. But the scars remained, because Teutoburg wasn't just a loss. It was a revelation. Rome could bleed, and when an empire realizes it can bleed, it begins to fear the knife. The ambitions of total conquest shrank. The empire turned inward. Defenses replaced advances. The invincible Rome was gone. Legends say that even centuries later, travelers in the Teutoburg Forest reported strange sounds, marching footsteps with no source, voices crying out in Latin, and whispers in the wind. The forest had taken something from Rome, and it had never given it back. So what really died in Teutoburg? Not just 3 legions, not just a general, but the illusion of Roman dominance. It was the first crack in a wall that would centuries later come crashing down. The fall of Rome didn't begin with a siege. It began with silence, steel, and betrayal in a forest soaked in rain and blood. 3 legions entered, none returned, and Rome was never the same again.